By now, the entire country knows that in the wee hours of this morning, a fire occurred at the Public Works building at Arnos Vale, adjacent to the E.T. Joshua Airport. At that facility, we store materials, building materials, for the Ministry of Housing. Materials, building materials for the poor, the needy, the indigent, building materials for individuals who had their homes damaged or destroyed in natural disasters, especially since the Christmas flood of 2013 and even a residue from Thomas, and to complete the 90 Lives to Live units, which have commenced. As you know, we have done far more units, and these units are not just entire houses. The units, a bathroom, an additional room, and the like. And there are some persons who have vouchers to collect building materials, and it is from that storeroom principally that those materials come. So this fire is, apart from the criminal nature of the fire, if we accept the premise of the police, because the Commissioner of Police indicated to me that they have a reasonable suspicion that it is arson. So apart from any possible or probable criminal character of this particular fire, this is a fire directed against the poor people of this country, the vulnerable and the marginalized. Let us call a spade a spade. This is not a fire directed at Ralph Gonsalves. This is not a fire directed at Arnim Eustace. This is not a fire directed at persons who have their mortgages and are dealing with their own housing concerns by themselves. This is a fire directed at the poor, the vulnerable, and the marginalized. Because you go there this morning and you would see galvanized sheetings which are destroyed and large quantities of plywood. They're in bundles. Thankfully, the fire was contained by the brave members of the fire services so that it did not affect another area of the premises in which we also store building materials. So let us understand this. I do not want to speak to the evidence which the Commissioner of Police drew my attention to, for them to conclude reasonably that it is arson. That is not my province. That is the province of the police to speak towards at the appropriate time. But that is the thesis, that is the reasonable suspicion upon which they are operating. Then, of course, the fire takes place within a broader context. The fire constitutes part of the text But the context is a broader one in which the opposition is not prepared to accept that they lost their elections, the elections which we had on December the 9th. And they are engendering anti-government and anti-supervisor of elections sentiments to a degree that a text can be written metaphorically, even they themselves do not write the text, that the context is provided. You who are listening to me know that. Here as members of the media, the general public know that. And the members of the opposition will also know that persons will come to reasonable conclusions. Clearly, I cannot be as irresponsible to accuse the opposition for this fire. I'll never do that. And no one can reasonably do so. But what we can reasonably say is that a context is being engendered, manufactured, in which this kind of behavior is accorded a veneer of legitimacy. Let us speak it for what it is. If the police are proven correct with their reasonable suspicion, it is a crime. There are two ways in which a fire can occur. One by accident and the other by arson. I do not know that there can be just a spontaneous combustion. We hear about bushfires when they have a drought. But at a building, I think that one can reasonably exclude a spontaneous combustion, that it just doesn't happen by itself. It's either an accident or a deliberately set fire. And this fire takes place in the context of persons who are clearly eager to set fires. There are the two instances with flambeau, Molotov cocktails at Vinlek. That's widely reported in the press, in the media. And then, of course, the very day when we were swearing in, the cabinet members up at Heritage Square, in front of Waidy Lima, some person or persons took certain structures and garbage, put them in the road and lit them. So clearly, we have certain persons as a form of political protest. They are not opposed to lighting fires. I'm not talking metaphorically here, but literally. I am sure that the opposition will denounce the fire. I'm quite sure. And no one would be able reasonably to say that such denunciation is not sincere. But if a context is manufactured or engendered where elements whom you are leading, for one reason or the other, are encouraged to believe the falsehood that the elections were not free and fair, that they would themselves feel motivated to commit unlawful acts. So I want to put the position with clarity. Our people are a peace-loving people. And our police force, all the members of the police force recognize this. And that is why when people are protesting, even when they may be committing unlawful acts or maybe breaking the law, the police, as we have noticed, they have been restrained in the exercise of their authority. And clearly, they have determined in their approach to temper firmness with sensitivity. But it is for the management of the police force to consider whether or not their embrace of sensitivity has been such that it might have softened the firmness. But that is a matter for them to decide. That is a management issue of law and order, which is in the hands of the Commissioner of the Police and the members of the police force. By and large, the police have allowed protests, even when those protests are clearly in breach of the Public Order Act. And I encourage all concerned to read the Public Order Act, Chapter 396 of the Laws of Sentencing. But if in their generosity and sensitivity, there are persons who are protesting who have interpreted that generosity or sensitivity as signs of weakness, clearly the persons who are protesting would be in error, particularly when they cross the boundaries from a simple protest to engage in activities which offend the person or property of others.